You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio, the show that helps you build the business you need for the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. You know, I'm a big believer that the biggest obstacles to your success aren't something out there coming against you. It's something inside rising up to challenge you. It's those limiting beliefs that can prevent you from really experiencing the success in life and business that you are entitled to. Today's guest is an expert in helping you break through limiting beliefs and barriers so you can create an extraordinary life. Joining me is Kelly Resendez. She is a mom, a writer, a speaker, a mortgage executive, and founder of Big Voices, a women-empowered network. She has published 2 books, Foundation to Sustainable Success, and the recent bestseller, Big Voices. Kelly Resendez, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Awesome. Thank you, Ralph. I am so excited to be here with you and your listeners.
Thanks so much for joining us. I can't wait to dig into your business and how you empower and help people. First, tell us a little bit more about where you come from and how you got interested in doing what you're doing.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town in Northern California and, just incredibly blessed that my parents were extremely hard workers. Neither one of them came from much. My mom actually migrated here from Mexico at an early age. And so there was just no option for them other than to work really hard and, build a life for themselves and our family. And my mom, had me start working very young, and I just never knew anything different. So I was incredibly blessed that, I had this opportunity just to learn a strong work ethic from a young age. But with that, honestly, came a desire to be significant, and I was very attention-seeking growing up. And what ended up happening is, I got into banking at a very young age, just starting out in high school through an ROP program. And through that, spent the next 16 years in banking and mortgage, and had a lot of life lessons during that period of time. Was a high 6-figure earner and had a thriving business. But the downside to that was that I was absolutely miserable while I was doing it. And
you mean money can't buy happiness? Is that what you're telling us?
It can't. And I probably didn't know that at the time because I was so asleep to what was really important and really just significance and quite frankly, just trying to prove my worth to my parents as well, probably drove me. And I had what I now call the greatest gift of my life. My mom was diagnosed with dementia in 2002. And through that, she was so young, and she too was a hard worker and successful. And she probably wasn't as present while I was growing up because she was so busy working hard. I really just started to write a new story for myself and submerged myself into personal and spiritual development, and really was able to write a new story and start experiencing joy both professionally and personally like I never imagined. And so that's really the reason why I believe I am where I am today. It is that combination, between hard work and then self-discipline. But further than that, just the self-awareness to know where my strengths and weaknesses are and how I'm able to overcome, some of that programming that is unfortunately kind of lodged with me for life. So
Yeah. So you've experienced firsthand how to overcome those limiting beliefs and barriers, and now you have founded an organization called Big Voices. Tell us more about what you're doing with that and the types of people that you're helping with that.
Yeah, so I would tell anyone that's listening, if you are wondering what your purpose is, it will eventually find you if you're open. And I know that my purpose is in helping people experience more joy and reduce self-suffering so that we can think differently and support one another more. And I felt this burning desire to really contribute and to help other people through some of the areas that I had to get through myself. I am what you would call a recovering perfectionist, and I refer to myself as my billboard self.
That's interesting. I'm a perfectionist, and I'm not even recovering from it yet. So there's some things I could learn from you.
Absolutely. And it is one of those that the downside of being a perfectionist is it really does keep you from your highest and most authentic self. Everything's always just a grab away. You aren't able to experience, success and joy in the moment like you should. And, limiting beliefs for me, I had to really go back and study psychology and neuroscience just to really understand how our brains are programmed so that I could share with other people ways to get through it much easier than I did.
Excellent. So what would be the most common problem you see when you're trying to help people work through these beliefs and get behind the things going on in their brain? What's the big obstacle that keeps throwing people off?
I would say that most people believe it's just them. Nobody wants to share that they are consumed with anxiety or overthinking, and that they're in this constant state of just worry or angst. And so people just don't share it with one another, and they believe that it's just them, and they, a day goes by, a week goes by, years go by, and they don't actually seek help. Where if we were more out loud with what our self-suffering is, I think we would really find that there are so many people that have very common struggles and sabotage themselves so similarly that we could provide more strategies to those people so that they can experience, a greater level of success and joy.
Now, you've used the term a couple of times, and I wanted to find out, when you say self-suffering, what do you mean by self-suffering?
Yeah, so I kind of divide suffering into two categories. There's those people that are really suffering, whether it's a physical condition or potentially a challenge with an imbalance or something that is outside of their control. And then self-suffering, I would describe as being a choice, actually. A lot of times we feel like we don't have power against self-suffering, but it would be things like fear, anger, guilt, shame, frustration, disappointment, things that just cause us that internal, sadness, anger, anything else that we actually have so much power to overcome if we seek the help and guidance from other people. And, another common problem I see is just so many people are afraid to ask for help. And they're afraid to, pick up a book or be open to a meeting with somebody that maybe's gone through something similar as them, because we just, I think our ability to be vulnerable is very limited.
And why is that? Is it because we are 24 hours a day posting the details of our life on social media? We're trying to put forth this image, this persona of someone who's got it all together and everything just perfect. Is it perfectionism extending to our very existence, and that creates self-suffering?
Yeah, I think the root of it is just who has the power. So I describe your ego as your little voice, and that is the lowest level of yourself that's trying to stop you from experiencing feelings of hurt or disappointment. But what it creates is feelings of hurt and disappointment. And so it's a tricky little thing. And so it's difficult. And a lot of times people associate ego with, somebody being macho or a man man or whatnot. But as women, we have very strong egos as well. And I describe our highest self as our big voice, which is our most, empowering, authentic self that just knows, like, I am a masterpiece. I'm not better than, worse than anyone else. I'm just different, with all of my struggles and strengths and weaknesses. I am truly a masterpiece. And when our little voice is in control, that's really where we just stay small and we play small, and we have so much internal conflict of I should be doing this, but I'm not. And then our ego justifies it, and you just get caught in a loop. And for most people, a lot of it's just age, maturity comes, and the things that you worried about when you're younger, posting the selfie just right. I mean, we can see a lot of Instagram photographs. You're like, there were a lot of photos deleted to capture that one perfect picture. We do want to project that. I was fortunate enough to be by my mom's side. Her dementia took 12 years to eventually end up in her death. And I was by her side for her last moments. And I wholeheartedly know that love is all that matters in the end. And that's whether you're a successful business owner running a multi-million-dollar company, or the person that's choosing to, do something, just from a charitable standpoint. It really doesn't matter who you are. That is what's most important. And that is not prioritized by your ego. And so it will drive you in directions that will cause more self-suffering.
Interesting. And man, I have studied this for many years, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone put it exactly like that, but it makes so much sense. Self-suffering. How do we get out of that? What's maybe a process that may not cure it, but can at least get us moving in the right direction to try and overcome this tendency towards self-suffering?
Yeah, so there's several things that people can do. And I would say it starts with an awareness. And that's really where it is. And when you look at the consciousness movement or mindfulness movement, it's phenomenal and it's amazing. But when a type A person first goes down that path, let me tell you, there were days that I felt like getting on a plane and finding Eckhart Tolle and holding him personally responsible for the fact that I was having two thoughts instead of one now. It's like, great. I just went from overthinking to like really overthinking. Like, am I present? Am I not present? And
that is so funny. You've got this
I think we've got to divide people.
You got this whole new meta awareness now that you have to deal with.
Yeah, and it's just, let me tell you, for type A people, we want to get things done quickly. We don't really embrace unfolding and patience very well. So, I think it's dividing people into different categories and saying, you know what, this is a good way for you to, get on this path to enlightenment. And for somebody that's more type A or an achiever like myself, this is another vehicle for you to be able to do that. And so I coach to what's called my thought management strategy, where I just teach people how to separate themselves from their thoughts and learn how to just sort and qualify them a little bit differently. Because when we really just start to document what are the thoughts and emotions that come from my big voice versus the thoughts and emotions that come from my little voice, as these thoughts come at me all day, I can just dismiss some of them and let them pass me by. They're not meant to guide me in my life, where I'm going to grab onto those other thoughts that are empowering and really hold on to those. So that's one way that we can become a little bit more mindful, is separating from those thoughts and then using a strategy to kind of overcome it. The other aspect I would say is that, we're very emotional creatures. Most of us, I would probably argue that women are more emotional than men. But
I would argue that,
yeah. And I believe that we just need better strategies to manage our emotional triggers as well. And so I take people through a trigger management strategy that they can use throughout the day, so that we get to that place that we can respond more than react and not have collateral damage along the way. Our humanness causes a lot of hurt when we aren't able to, withhold anger, frustration, blame. Having a thought management strategy and a trigger management strategy where you're really just, okay, I'm going to approach life with, from a very strategic standpoint, which works very well for business owners or for successful people. Then it becomes something that you want to master. And over time, it becomes easier. And then eventually, where I'm blessed to be now, it's just who I am. And I don't have to think about it any longer. But those first few years, let me tell you, I found Power of Now, I think in 2004. And it was difficult for me to go through, an awakening. And so part of the Big Voices, mission is to shorten that period of time. There's some things that as you start to realize, like, wow, life isn't really the way that it seems. I don't need to live this way anymore. Learning from other people that have gone through it will help you.
So you've talked about awareness. You've talked about managing emotional triggers. What's the third step? Yeah.
So the third step is to identify your preferred method of self-sabotage. And so when we look at life, so many of us have goals and a vision and an idea of what we want our life to look like, and then 10 years go by. And we haven't really taken massive action towards achieving that. And usually the reason that we get stuck is we get stuck in that gap between intention and action, and we just sabotage ourselves. So, we want to be healthy and we eat a large pepperoni pizza and a basket of wings. We want to be successful at work, but we don't make the calls that we need to, or, allow the fear of to stop us from walking into an office that we haven't conducted business with before. So it's important that you personally identify, like, okay, if I have goals or a vision, one way that a lot of people do sabotage themselves is by not writing down their goals and their vision. So you want to start there. But then you can go through and just really use that awareness to say, what could I have done different? Maybe I needed to manage my time differently, or I'm a procrastinator, or for you and I, we're perfectionists. So we want and are worried about what something's going to turn out like and our desire for it to be perfect. And that's usually in the eyes of other people. We may not do something as quick as we could have because we're worried about that. And so there's a long list of ways that people self-sabotage. And when you identify it, I recommend that you keep it in front of you every day. So every day I'm reviewing, my ways that I sabotage myself. So for myself, again, perfectionism, or, that attention seeking programming that's still lodged in there from when I was, 7 and told I was super smart in class, or whatever it is that shows up every day. And
is that a negative? Being told that?
It can be. Yeah. It can be. Because it was the feeling that I got from the attention, not the pride I got from actually doing a good job.
I see.
That fueled me. So, my desire to please other people, really took the first 30 years of my life. Like I honestly made so many choices that I would not make today. I know that it got me to where I am, but at the same time, I was not in my true authentic self for the majority of my, first 30 years.
Wow. And I don't think that's unusual. I think that's actually the default condition from so many people. I mean, I can relate to that as well.
Yeah, and I would tell you that most people, probably are more apt to go through an awakening or midlife crisis, or just, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, as they get closer to their 50s. And for those of us that suffered loss or have experienced a great amount of pain, that will also, move that process up. And, I started 14 years ago, and so I was very early to the party. And another thing that I really experienced on a level that I try to help people with was loneliness. Because so many of my friends were just worried about, what purse they were going to buy, or what party we were going to go to, or, what type of bottle service was coming at the next party. And I went through periods of loneliness because I didn't have anyone in proximity to me that was also on this personal growth path. And so another suggestion of mine is really just to seek out more people. It doesn't come naturally. You have to put in as much intention to finding like-minded, friends and supporters as you do into your business.
Interesting. And so that really is a nice entrance into my next question is how you can help people. I always say self-help is great, except for the part where you have to help yourself. And some people can't really take those self-help steps by themselves. And that's exactly what you're saying, is that you do need to reach out and network. So how could working with someone like you and being a part of Big Voices, how would that help them really improve their chances for success as opposed to doing everything on their own?
I would just say that it really is just a step. And it's not about reading one book or one blog or watching one video. It's about making a commitment to yourself. Most of us empty our cup every day to serve other people, women especially. And we've got to get to a better place where we have prioritized, personal growth and self-care so that our cup is really overflowing. And for the women out there, I believe that although we shattered the glass ceiling, most of us, and our families included, have shards of glass that are injuring us very subtly. And all of us are impacted by this decision and this commitment to invest more in yourself. So the things that I offer, is just that invitation to say, think about a different way. If you're stressed or out of balance or feel like you're lonely or, it just is a little bit hopeless, that this is an invitation that with the right mindset and strategies and then community to surround you, you absolutely can live an extraordinary life. And that ripple effect amongst the world and the community, just if we can get to that place where we can support one another better, because the whole purpose of Big Voices is so we rise up in support of one another and celebration.
Very good. So what are you working on right now that's got you really excited?
Yeah, I am working on just expanding the community that Big Voices offers and a training program that's designed to help people reduce stress and increase balance in their life so that we really reveal the ugly truths of the way that so many people benefit from our self-suffering. And as I really, went down this path and realized that there's so many people that don't want us to come out of self-suffering because they benefit financially from it. When you think about what we do when we distract ourselves, self-sabotage, or want the quick fix, we spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of money. And I think
we want a pill, not a process, right?
We do. We do. And that's an overwhelmingly great point, Ralph, is that, 20% of people now have just opted to go to the doctor and get a pill to reduce stress or anxiety when it really is just not reducing it. It's deadening your ability to feel, which means your ability to feel joy or success is also deadened. And the impact of that is really not known right now. So I would love for people to spend a little bit more time on themselves and really just realize it doesn't have to be that way. You can have massive success in your business, be a great parent. I'm a mom of 2 teenagers, which means I'm in a battlefield every day right now for anyone else with teenagers. The perfectionism thing, living in a household with 2 moody children is my greatest teacher that I could have ever imagined. And we have to just invest in ourselves more so I can just show up and be unconditional with my love and acceptance of them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, your kids will teach you a lot of things.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Well, this has been really good. I think our listeners will want to be able to get in touch with you and find out more about Big Voices and the other things that you have available. What is the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I would love for them to check out my website, bigvoicesrise.com. You will find a lot of great free resources and a free chapter of my Big Voices book, which is also found there on the website and sold on Amazon. We were fortunate enough to become a bestseller and hopefully just continuously touch the lives of people that are out there.
Awesome. Kelly, this has been really educational as well as inspirational, and I really appreciate you sharing your ideas with us. I think it's tremendously helpful. Do you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Absolutely, Ralph. You and I have so much in common in terms of just being of service. You talk a lot about just the best way to market yourself. And that pulls through to our entire life. And when we're so focused on ourselves and our own problems, we will self-suffer. We've got to get to this place where you rise up and really invest the time in yourself so that you can serve others and your business, your family. The world will benefit from you rising into your highest self. So if you're somebody that just says things to yourself or has feelings of fear, shame, doubt, worry, anger, frustration, disappointment, etc., I just want to give you hope and a path that it doesn't have to be that way. You have choices. You can write a new story. It's never hopeless. And I just wish you all, the love and blessings in the world and finding your big voice, because we need you to.
Excellent. Words of wisdom from Kelly Resendez. She is a mom, a writer, a speaker, a mortgage executive, and founder of Big Voices, a women empowered and inspired, but a women empowered network. You can find out more about Kelly and about Big Voices by visiting bigvoicesrise.com. Kelly, thanks so much for being on Rebelpreneur Radio today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Ralph. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at ralphbrogden.com.